All right, so let's go ahead and tackle this first problem, or let's see how you did. So, first question asks, what is the vertex of this equation? So all we got to do is first we know that A equals 4, B equals 16, and C equals 9. And so I have H is equal to negative over 2. It's negative B over 2A. So 16 over 2 times A is 4. That's negative 16 over 8, which is negative 2. And so K, all I got to do is plug in the 2 into that equation. So 4 squared plus 16 plus 9. So here, 2 squared is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 2 is negative 36. Again, notice that thing I've been saying about those two numbers. The second one's double with opposite the sign, so we know we're on the right track. So this ends up with negative 16 plus 9. I have my calculator because I can't think right now, because as you can see, it's 2 in the morning. Yeah, negative 7. So here, my vertex is negative 2, negative 7. And so we have our A, H, and K. So remember the formula is ax minus h squared plus k. So my formula, or my equation in standard form, is just 4 x plus 2 double negative squared minus 7. All right, so what are the x-intercepts? Let's go ahead and set the equation that we solved. I'm going to do it both ways. And so why did I put can't be 0? I'm so used to doing domain. Okay, Tater Tot is playing with an empty ketchup packet on the floor. Fantastic. Okay. Anyway, I add the 7 over. X plus 2 squared equals 7. I divide the 4 over. X plus 2 squared is equal to 7 over 4. I take the square root. Remember, when you do the square root, it turns into a plus or minus. So x plus 2 equals plus or minus. Now the square root of 7 is just square root of 7. The square root of 4 is 2. So square root of 7 over 2. And then I subtract 2. So x is equal to, since I subtracted the 2, negative 2, plus or minus square root of 7 over 2. How happy that was. And we have our two x-intercepts. Again, if you wanted to, you could have also done the quadratic formula. I'll try to fit it on the same page this time. So if you're doing the quadratic formula, it's going to be x is equal to negative b, so negative 16, plus or minus the square root of b squared. So I go on my calculator and I just type in 16 squared. You know what? I'll bring up the calculator over here. When I was doing the video earlier, I completely forgot that I had a calculator, like a virtual calculator. Anyway, so I'm over here. I'll just leave it over here. So I have 16 squared, 256, minus 4a times c. And I can actually do all of that. 4 times a times c, 144. All divided by 2 times a, and that's just 8. So negative 16 plus or minus 256 minus 144, 112, all over 8. And this is where the calculator can't really help you anymore, because we have the square root of 112, which means we got to break that up. So what you have to do is, trying to find room on this page. Let me move you over here. So then I can get all this and move it over here. Okay, so what we're trying to do is you have 112 and you want to break that up into numbers. And so you get your calculator and you try to see what number fits in 112. Well, it's obviously even, so there's 2. 56 is even. And 28 is just 4 times 7. Right? So you can look at this and see you got these numbers. And if you wanted to, you could break the 4 down further. So if you wanted to, you could break it down all the way to primes. You don't have to, but I know when some people see this tree, they really want to break it down into primes. All right. So how many 2's do I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4 2's. So this is just negative 16 plus or minus the square root of 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 7 all over 8. And so the way a square root works is it takes 2 of something and it takes it out as 1. Because 2 times 2 is 4. The square root of 4 is 2. So these can leave as 1, 2. This can leave as 1, 2. So we have negative 16 plus or minus 2 times 2, because both of those got to leave, as 1, 2. And then times square root of 7, because that's stuck underneath the square root. So negative 16 plus or minus 4 square root of 7 all over 8. And you divide each of them by 8. So negative 16 over 8 is negative 2. 4 over 8 is 1/2. So that's square root of 7 over 2. And notice you get the same answer. So no matter how you do the quadratic formula, you're going to get the right answer. Or whether you use the quadratic formula or you just use the standard form, you're going to get the same answer because you're doing the exact same thing. Now let me get all this fun stuff and shrink it. Adorable. Okay. Anyway, what is the y-intercept? Well, the y-intercept is just c. And so if you scroll up top, c was 9. So the y-intercept is just 0, 9. That's the point. Here again, I just wrote the x values, but if you wanted to write these as points, you would write point negative 2 plus square root of 7 over 2, 0, negative 2 minus square root of 7 over 2, comma, 0. Axis of symmetry is just x is equal to h. I go up here, h was negative 2. So x equals negative 2. Remember, you have to put the x equals as part of the equation. So now I have all this fun stuff, and I can plot it on my graph. So my vertex is negative 2, negative 7. Okay. Y-intercept is 0, 9, way up here. I have my axis of symmetry right through the vertex. Now, since this is 2 points away, I know that I have another point 2 points away. So there's my mirror point. And now I can graph the x-intercepts. So this is where you can just use your calculator. So yeah, I have the calculator right here. Negative 2 plus square root of 7 over 2. Negative 0.677. So right there. And then I can just do second enter and change the plus to a minus. Negative 3.32. Negative 3.3. And there you go. So connect the dots as best you can. Notice it has to be the shape of a parabola, but it has to curve. And there you go. All right. So the hardest part on this, in my opinion, was the x-intercepts. If you use the standard form, life is much easier. Now, the downside to that is that if you got the standard form wrong, which means if you got your vertex wrong, then everything else is going to be wrong. Now, the quadratic formula is just a method that you have to kind of get used to doing. It's just something that, as a STEM student, you have to know. And you have to be able to deal with ugly square roots. It just takes practice. There's no like, look at this video and it'll instantly come to you. It just comes with doing a bunch of examples. Um, so if you'd like, I can give a bunch of, I should actually post one of those, just a practice page of a bunch of quadratic formula problems to do. Anyway, yep, that's it for this problem.